it's time to wake up and get on the rise with all things Chicago sports. And your host, Mike Napoletano.
I'm Italian. I get yelled at all the time. This is normal for me. Are you kidding me?
I love it.
The Italians, we get really high, we get really emotional, and then we bring it right back down. And I'm just in the right back down part right now.
Daulton Cooper.
I think this is the year. He throws for over 4,000 yards. I think Ben Johnston has an understanding of how to take a quarterback and elevate. We've seen what he's done with Jared Goff. Obviously, Jared Goff had gotten his Super Bowl, and he was working with Sean McVay, but.
And Brandon Combs.
And to tell me that a guy in Barry Bonds, who in 2004 has more hits and intentional walks than swings and misses, for a guy who watches Luis Robert and cheers him on, you're going to tell me Barry Bonds does not belong in the Hall of Fame? You are out of your mind, sir.
On WRMN 1410 AM, the voice of the Valley.
Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of On the Rise here Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. on WRMN AM 1410. I am pre-recording here alongside my co-host. I am Mike Napoletano. We've got Daulton Cooper in the house and Brandon Combs, BCDC, in the house with us. How are you gentlemen doing this fine evening as we were recording Thursday evening ahead of time?
Doing fantastic, man. Sitting at home, just got off work a little bit ago, watching some Cubs baseball a little bit ago. Just took to, winning the series against the Nats. Watching some Women's College World Series right now. I know a lot of people are probably watching the NBA Finals. Not this guy.
Oh, you're boycotting, eh? Nice. No, I'm doing well. I just got back. We played softball tonight. We had the first game of the evening. I'm hitting 666 on the season, so that's the goal, is to hit over 500 this year. So we'll see how that goes, and ready to dig in, ready to sink my teeth in, if you will.
666. Oh, I don't know, Dalton. Yeah. That sounds like some Halloween talk. You might be right up my alley. That's part of the reason we're pre-recording here, is I have a haunt convention to go to this weekend. I know it's June. I'm going to get everybody on me going, what? That's crazy. But as you are here and listening to us, and we are pre-recording.
Wait. What is a haunt convention?
It's really funny.
No.
We're getting into this already. It's June. Why are we doing this in June? And I was like, I don't know. It's just his thing.
It's called Midwest Haunters Convention. It happens in Rosemont. I will be hosting a bunch of platforms, different things that'll be happening on the stage. It's literally all of the haunted houses from the Chicagoland area and more, because people fly in, drive in, and it's just a chance for everybody to get it, together before the season starts. Because then once the season starts, you're busy doing the actual haunt. People can buy things ahead of time. There's a bunch of ideas being shared and all that kind of stuff. Transworld's the big one in St. Louis. That is the largest Christmas and Halloween trade show. And that one is more for like the big haunts that want to pay for like the $10,000 props. This is more the networking. This is for everybody. This is to see everybody.
It's called Transfest.
Transworld. Get out of here.
Okay.
Come on.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. That was just that's all. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. Support that community, but it's
absolutely no. Like I said, I was just making sure I heard you correctly. That's all.
At some point, Mike, we all hit puberty. You're fine.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it's Pride Month. I'm an ally. I've got nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is absolutely. Yeah. As I was saying, WRMN AM 1410 is the voice of the Valley. You can listen to us on the WRMN radio app. That would be the TuneIn app, or the live feed, of course, on YouTube. If you're here watching us, you already know that. You can follow all of us on Twitter, or X, whatever you're calling it these days. Brandon is at RealCombsy, RealCombsy. Myself, Mike Napoletano, and Daulton Cooper, Daulton Cooper. So, gentlemen, let's get into some Chicago White Sox baseball. It was a rough weekend last weekend for the White Sox as they played the Baltimore Orioles, who are right above them in the AL standings. But you wouldn't have known it with the fact that the Orioles swept them. However, most of those games were close. So the White Sox were in them, low-scoring games. The White Sox fell in that Friday night game 2-1, but then they followed up with 4-2 and 3-2 losses Saturday and Sunday. What did you guys see from that Orioles team and lack of seeing from that White Sox team.
Ooh, can we start with this first? How about the dirty play? Like he literally, I can't remember the guy's name, but he literally shoves his arms or tries to get intentionally like, yeah. I remember the group chat was going wild. Forgive me, I don't know his name. If you know the guy's name, help me out. But yes. Yeah. Just honestly, I thought that was the highlight of the series. It was like, oh my God, they're going to instigate a fight, and the Orioles are actually finally showing some signs of life. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was Colby Mayo. And I thought he completely, if you watch that replay, he stepped completely out of the baseline and extended the elbow in order to try to hit Larry Garcia. How is that not on him?
Yeah, it was one of those plays where it's just something that you don't see often in baseball, period. I mean, it's more of an NBA type flop type play. But, look, the Orioles are trying to find something. And maybe they did, right? Maybe that series excited them because then after that they went and swept the Mariners. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes you need something to get you going, and if that's what the Orioles needed to get them going, whatever it is, what it is. Look, Mayo's a stud. He's a rising star for the Orioles, somebody that they're going to be leaning on here in the future, and maybe that's what they needed to get back into whatever it is, because they've just been they've probably been the biggest disappointment in all of Major League Baseball this year.
You're not wrong. I mean, the Orioles had high hopes. Baltimore itself had high hopes for this up-and-coming young Orioles team that was super talented. They won 100 games. Was it last year or 2 years ago? So, we're talking about a team that has fallen from grace, and White Sox fans can relate to that. They've seen that happen here in the last couple of years as well. But for Colby Mayo to have done that, and then, as John Schriffen pointed out in the broadcast, be the first one out of the scrum after shoving Larry Garcia and back into the locker room. Listen,
that's baseball.
Guys, I can't respect that, though. But, that's just –
you see that more often than not in baseball scrums where the guy who starts it all of a sudden – very rarely do you see two guys go at it like you saw, back in the day when your boy Tim Anderson got exposed with a weak chin.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often. You see a lot of times where the guys, it cracks me up when I watch these fights, because I'm a UFC guy too. Like, I love watching the UFC, and when I watch these baseball players, push and shove, and then the bullpens come out, and in Baltimore, the bullpens are they go through the same door. So it was funny because they pan on the bullpens coming out. You see the Orioles running out while the White Sox are waiting for them to run out so that they can run out as well. It's the funniest thing you ever see when these baseball teams get into these scrums. Nothing ever really comes of it. Every once in a while you get the Tim Anderson, Jose Ramirez bout. Every once in a while, you see Kyle Farnsworth, just bull rushing a guy and tackling him. But it's very rare that you actually see contact, or you actually see guys that start to go after it. And 9 times out of 10, the guy who starts it is usually the first one out of the scrum.
You're right. And all three of us here, I think we all have a love and appreciation for baseball. But at the same time, I think all three of us can agree that even managers running up to umps and arguing calls and kicking dirt and throwing their hat, all of it is just theatrics and funny at certain points. It's like you're not accomplishing anything. You're just throwing a tantrum. When you said they're running out of the same bullpen and wait, it's like, what are we really doing here? And then, nobody, like you said, nobody threw punches. It was just a big scrum out on the field. We're going to get to another big scrum out on a field when we get into our Boomers and Cougars news, but I want to stick on the White Sox topic because the week did get better for the White Sox as they were able to take 2 of 4, split the series with the best team in the MLB right now, the Detroit Tigers, who are the first team to hit 40 wins. Of course, Monday night, not quite the best showing from the White Sox as they come home and lose 13-1, but they bounced back with an 8-1 win on Tuesday. Wednesday, the White Sox were down 4-0, but they fought back despite falling short and receiving that 5-4 loss. And then today, boys, I apologize to our guest who we will be having on at 9 o'clock. That's a little bit of a preview. Genna Rose of the Chicago Blackhawks, Milwaukee Bucks, and AU softball. Oh, and also the Chicago Stars. But we mostly talked AU softball because she's originally from Detroit. I apologized to her. I said, I'm sorry about your Tigers because the White Sox took it to the Tigers in extra innings today after blowing a 2-0 lead, yes. But, Brandon, you made some very good points about Tim Elko, and he proved you right as he gets the walk-off for the White Sox in the 10th inning.
But he can erase all of that with a walk-off here. 0-1 pitch. Elko on the ground, the middle, and that's gonna do it! Corey Lee scores a walk-off for the rookie, Tim Elko. The Sox will split this 4-game series against the best team in Major League Baseball.
Elko Suave does it again.
Elko Suave.
And that clip was courtesy of MLB.com and the Chicago White Sox alongside the ESPN 1000 broadcast, or CHSN broadcast.
Yeah.
That is the TV side of things. That's not the WRMN side of things, but you can listen to all of the Chicago White Sox games right here on AM 1410 WRMN. We are your home for 2025 Chicago White Sox baseball. But gentlemen, a split with the Tigers.
Yeah, and look, you talk about listening to the game as of Friday. Half of Chicago who couldn't watch the games now are going to be able to watch the games as CHSN finally came to an agreement with Comcast. I don't have Comcast, so I was already able to get CHSN. But for those Sox fans, those Blackhawks fans that do have Comcast, it's going to be good for them to be able to see this team most of the time anyway. But you're finally able to see that. And it was important for CHSN to get this monkey off their back because, I mean, it's been a huge black mark on this network. So which provides tremendous coverage, by the way. I mean, CHSN does a fantastic job. They did a fantastic job with Hawks coverage. They've done a fantastic job with White Sox coverage. So it'll be good for fans to be able to see that as well.
I do like their score bug. Yeah.
Yeah,
the Bulls too. Yeah, they got a nice score bug. The player I'm kind of paying attention to though is Shane Smith. He's been pitching really well this season. How long do we think the Sox hang on to him, or do you think he's going to be trade bait come June or July? I don't know. I just feel like the Sox team's not in any position to really compete at a high level. So how long do we keep these assets to not move them for a bigger value? I mean, he's 2-3 right now, but his ERA is 2.45. He's got almost a 2 WAR. He's pitched 62 and a third innings in 12 games. I mean, he's pitching pretty well. He was the starter for that 8-1 win they had against the Tigers. So, I mean, you guys tell me, Brandon, you're probably more the seam head than I am, but I just feel like that is definitely a good trade value right now, especially for the team just, north of the side of town here could use a starter like him.
Yeah, and at some point though, and I mean, Mike, I'm sure you agree with this. At some point, you have to stop selling at the deadline, right? Like if you sign guys like Mike Tauchman. Mike Tauchman's a guy who could be a trade piece if he's playing well by the deadline. If you're talking about maybe even Eloy Jimenez at this point, or not Eloy Jimenez, sorry, God, he's already long gone. You're talking about Luis Robert, and you put Luis Robert out there, sure. But these young guys that you're bringing up, like Chase Mydrow, Shane Smith, all of the players that are coming up in within your system, the Tim Elkos, at some point they got to stay in your system, and at some point they've got to stay on your team because you have to at some point get better. Now it might take till 2034 before we see that, or 2029 at the very earliest, from what we heard today with the sale of the White Sox, but it needs to happen, right? Like it's got to be one of those things where Shane Smith stays a Chicago White Sox, and it's got to be one of those. Chase Mydrow stays a Chicago White Sox, but you do have a couple of other trade pieces. I just don't think Shane Smith will be one of them.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that it's a situation of these guys are too young for these other teams to really take a flyer out on them at the trade deadline. And like you said, Brandon, I think White Sox fans are so tired of selling at the deadline. Now, do I think this year is going to be different? No, because the White Sox are still in that cellar. So, I mean, they're still going to be sellers. Different seller. But, I don't think they're ready to take that next step. But you've got to be building something here. And like you've alluded to, and we'll get into that right here next, is the sale of the White Sox. Now, we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, that the ownership changed at the start of this season, and it was talked about, but not really when the pen met paper. Did people really even bring this up? I believe it was either on 670 or ESPN 1000, that they actually broke down the percentage for the shareholders of the White Sox. And all these fans that were crying for Jerry Reinsdorf's head, you have to realize that even at the start of the season, even at day one, the Ishbias actually had higher shares in the White Sox than Jerry Reinsdorf. The power dynamic for the White Sox has shifted. There's also a bunch of other shareholders that are involved here that we don't know names of. It's all suits and ties, and I'm not sure what their role is in decision making because that's a little bit more behind the scenes, but it's not all on Jerry anymore. And then, of course, we get the notice today that Jerry Reinsdorf is, in fact, looking to go ahead and basically turn over the rights of the team to Ishbia. In the statement, this is actually from Jesse Rogers of ESPN on X. He said, the White Sox announced they have entered into a long-term investment agreement with billionaire Justin Ishbia. Quote, the agreement provides that from 2029 to 2023, Reinsdorf will have the option to sell the controlling interest to Ishbia. After the 2034 season, Ishbia will have the option to acquire the controlling interest in the event of any such any such future transaction. All limited partners of the Sox would have the opportunity to sell to Ishbia at that time. And the press release that the White Sox had come out with was a quote from Jerry Reinsdorf. He said, quote, having the incredible opportunity to own the Chicago White Sox and be part of Major League Baseball for nearly 50 years has been a life-changing experience. I have always expressed my intent to operate the White Sox as long as I am able and remain committed to running this franchise to the level of on-field success we all expect and desire. So, I mean, this is big news. I mean, it's not immediate. I voiced in the group chat, I think, with you guys that, you know, this is year one of the Ishbias, as I kind of said. So we're not really able to see, and you brought up a good point, Brandon, that we're not really able to see them make a whole lot of the decisions of what is on the field and stuff like that. But we're starting to see this White Sox team turn a corner, and you got to think that some of the change in ownership has to do with that. So maybe 10 years down the line, we're looking at a very different organization.
Yeah, and you know, look, you're talking about a baseball team that, you know, it has just been poorly run over the last 10 years. I mean, you just have to be honest about it. Like, they have not been very well run. Jerry Reinsdorf has kind of lost his way. But what I saw with this, and I know it doesn't happen until 2029 at the earliest, 2034 for Ishbia to take over as the owner, but it's a step in the right direction, right? Baby steps is what I said in our text chain, because
right.
You already saw the baby steps, right? Like with Josh Barfield, with Ishbia coming on and hiring Josh Barfield to be the assistant GM to Chris Getz. I think that was a huge move. I think that has a lot of impact on the success of the White Sox right now. I say success not so much in wins, but success in the fact that they're actually fun to watch. They're actually a watchable product this year, and that's not something that they were last year. And when you're trying to put together a front office that is competent, that is something where I think Ishbia becoming where he's at now and maybe being able to take over some other shareholder stakes and stuff like that, it's going to be more Ishbia's input moving forward. I'm sure you're probably not going to be able to let go of the Chris Getzes of the world, the guys that Jerry still wants to hang on to, because that's been a downfall of Jerry for a long time, even with the Chicago Bulls. Hell, even with the White Sox going back to, you know, when you go back to the Robin Ventura days. Robin Ventura didn't want an extension. Jerry Reinsdorf extended him anyway. Like, it was, you know what I mean? So you've seen it a lot, but I think you're going to start to see some change in a good direction for White Sox fans. And I know it's not exactly what we thought we were going to hear. I said it earlier in the season. I said that at some point by the end of this season, you're probably going to see the sale of the White Sox. I didn't necessarily think that it was going to be in 2034, but you know, you're still seeing some progress here, and progress is good.
Yeah. One last point I will make on this is that the points of Jerry Reinsdorf, and he is, from my sources that have been within the front office of the Chicago White Sox, a very loyal and a very down-to-earth person. I mean, he cares about everybody that's in that front office. So I want to give him his credit where it's due. Loyal to a fault, though, I think is a fair criticism. Like you said, there's been people that he's kept around that maybe even they didn't want to stay around either. But hopefully, that starts to change. And hiring new blood outside of the organization is always a great step, considering the fact that that hasn't really happened here in the White Sox organization in some time. When we look at the upcoming schedule for this White Sox team really quickly, of course, we're recording here on Thursday, as I mentioned. So they have a 6:40 game tomorrow night against the Kansas City Royals. That'll be Davis Martin due up. Then it's Saturday at 3:10 against Kansas City and 1:10 on Sunday. I know, Brandon, you will be at both games Saturday and Sunday, so we'll get a little bit more insight next week from you on those two games. Then the White Sox are on the road for 7-10 starts all 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday against the Houston Astros. And next weekend, they'll continue in the Lone Star State as they face the Texas Rangers, 7:05, 3:05, and 1:35, respectively, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We also had some other news in White Sox land, which is why I said this has been a very up and down week. The Chicago Fire have swooped in and it seems like are taking the 78, which was, of course, the 78th community in Chicago, or 78th little suburb subset. The White Sox wanted to build and develop there, and it looks as though they weren't able to give a proper proposal to the city that wouldn't involve taxpayer dollars. So the Chicago Fire came in and said, well, you know what? We'll take that land and we will privately fund this ourselves. So your thoughts, gentlemen, on the Fire swooping in and soccer reigning in Chicago?
Yeah, that's what's impressive to me is just the willingness. I mean, I don't know if that's got anything to do with Jerry getting rid of the team and him not wanting to invest more money, on his way out, if you will. I guess from a business standpoint, that makes a little bit of sense, but it does seem a little selfish in that regard too, just because he's had it for so long. He's had ample opportunities to get this deal done and just couldn't. But I've always been on the side of, like, if billionaires want to have stadiums, then they should be, like, if they want to have all the profits and do all these events and everything else, then they should definitely be fronting the bill, not, the rest of the people. But that's just me. But it's amazing that the MLS team could find more money in their pocket than the Chicago White Sox, a Major League Baseball team. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and look, and the owner of the Fire, forgive me for not remembering his name, talking about in the press conference, kind of took a shot at Jerry too in that aspect, because he actually said, he's like, I know that this was a spot where another team in the city was thinking about building a ballpark. He said, but I think all ballparks should be privately funded, and I think that was a direct shot.
Yeah, that was Joe Mansueto of the Chicago Fire, and he has been with that team for a while. He's going to personally finance a $650 million soccer-specific stadium on that development. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this on the other half of the break. We've got some North Side news as well, and some minor league news when it comes to indie ball. That would be the Boomers and the Cougars, as well as, I don't know, maybe we'll throw in a little bit of more soccer talk with the Stars, maybe some Sky talk in there as well. You're listening to AM 1410 WRMN. This is On the Rise. Brandon Combs, Daulton Cooper, and myself, Mike Napoletano.
It's time to wake up and get on the rise with all things Chicago sports. And your host, Mike Napoletano.
I'm Italian. I get yelled at all the time. This is normal for me. Are you kidding me?
I love it.
With the Italians, we get really high, we get really emotional, and then we bring it right back down. And I'm just in the right back down part right now.
Daulton Cooper.
I think this is the year. I think this is the year he throws for over 4,000 yards. I think Ben Johnston has an understanding of how to take a quarterback and elevate. We've seen what he's done with Jared Goff. Obviously, Jared Goff had gotten to Super Bowl, and he was working with Sean McVay, but.
And Brandon Combs.
To tell me that a guy in Barry Bonds, who in 2004 has more hits and intentional walks than swings and misses. For a guy who watches Luis Robert and cheers him on, you're going to tell me Barry Bonds does not belong in the Hall of Fame? You are out of your mind, sir.
On WRMN 1410 AM, the voice of the Valley.
You are listening to AM 1410 WRMN. This is On the Rise. Myself, Mike Napoletano, resuming here alongside Daulton Cooper and Brandon Combs on our pre-recorded show here. We were just talking about the Chicago Fire planning to develop on the 78 right along the river there. I would expect, of course, we saw those White Sox renderings of what they planned to build there that lacked some parking lots, just like another team that we will get to eventually in this show, who proposed a new stadium with no parking lots, which is crazy to me. Not everybody Ubers, not everybody takes taxis, not everybody takes Lyft. But I will say one cool thing about the White Sox proposal, because the 78 is right along the river there, that south branch of the Chicago River, I'm hoping that the Chicago Fire have the same idea to do water taxis to games, because you know what? It'll still be around baseball season, summer, spring a little bit, maybe it'll be a little chilly there, and fall that the Fire are playing games. So it'll still be nice weather. You can't really do that with the Bears Stadium if they were to revamp Soldier Field. And I guess one of their ideas that was hinted at was, oh yes, people will park at Navy Pier and they will get on a boat that will ferry them over to Soldier Field. And everybody kind of did a double take and went, do you realize what months you play in? November, December, maybe a little bit in January if you start to become a playoff team. Nobody's doing that. But for this stadium, that could be a possibility.
Yeah, look, when you talk about the Bears and what they're doing, and I can't wait till they're out of Lakeshore Drive and out of Soldier Field and into much greener pastures where you don't have to go just one way after you're exiting a game down Lakeshore Drive with 9 million people at the same exact time. So trying to do a U-turn to go the opposite way to get back on the highway if you live on the south side of the city. I think the Fire will figure it out. I think they'll do it the right way. I mean, yes, there has to be some sort of parking lot. Yes, there's got to be some sort of traffic control and all of this stuff in that area. As a guy who drives down that way every single day, like, I hate when NASCAR is in. I hate when Lollapalooza is in. Like, I hate when those things are here because of I have to drive through them. And my 20-minute commute to downtown is already 2 hours Monday through Friday. I don't want it to be happening to me on Saturday and Sunday as well. But yeah, there's a lot of things that have to go into it. I would assume that they're, this day and age, they're going to go about it the right way. And whether it's a couple of extra parking garages, whether it's, utilizing other space to build parking lots, whatever the case is, I just hope that they're going to do it the right way.
Yeah, and Mansueto, I was doing Mansueto. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Mansueto. I was doing a little homework on him while you guys were chatting. He's from Munster, by the way, so just in case. He is kind of kind of a local. It's probably a couple hours from here, if my memory serves me. But he owns Morningstar, which is a big financial company, and they do about $1.8 billion in revenue on a yearly basis. So, yeah, he's doing all right, I think. So I like it just to the fact that he could literally fund the thing by himself. And Jerry Reinsdorf can't even tank with the Bulls correctly. I just don't understand what we're doing here. Like, the Bulls have needed a tank for like a decade, and all they want to do is stick in the middle. I think that just, unfortunately, it reflects Jerry, for all intents and purposes. So, but yeah, I think they'll figure it out. This guy definitely seems to know what he's doing just from a business standpoint, how he runs. He owns a couple other different soccer teams as well, but yeah, he definitely seems to have an idea of what he's doing.
You mean only offering $200 million to build a stadium that's going to cost you $2 billion isn't a good thing?
No, I would say probably not. No.
Numbers and math. I know it's hard. But,
I got to take my shoes off to count that high.
Listen, if Jeff's Trains World is watching, we do still love racing. Go back to our episode last week. We covered the Indy 500. And if anybody from NASCAR is listening, we are still going to be trying to cover the Chicago race event, despite Brandon having to fight them.
If you're watching right now, these two still love racing. These two will be covering racing.
Yeah, boogity.
I like to turn right every once in a while.
Right, yeah, there you go. As you mentioned, though, with Mansueto, he's done a lot of great things for this Fire organization. There was some concern and some mulling about when they moved the team from Bridgeview back to Soldier Field, but I think ultimately it has been a good decision for the Fire, and then for them to now be able to branch out and hopefully solidify this project at the 78. That'll bode well for them in the future, especially if the Bears end up leaving Soldier Field. I don't know if the Fire would draw the same way because it's no longer the home of the Bears, too. People aren't going to Soldier Field as much unless it's for concerts and stuff, so they aren't thinking, oh, let's come back for a Fire game at a certain time. And, like I said, trying to get out of that stadium is a nightmare, so hopefully this is going to be a...
And you'll love this, Mike. He's Italian. He's your people.
Yes, he is. Molto bene. Grazie.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Fire
Mamma mia.
currently. Mamma mia. Yeah, we will get to that a little bit. I will say that the Fire had a great time out in Orlando City at Inter & Co Stadium. Philip Zinkernagel gets the scoring started in the 5th minute with a shot that goes through the keeper's hands. Definitely one that Orlando wants back. And from there on out, it was all Fire. Ugo Kuipers with the goal in the 31st minute, and he follows it up with just a minute after that. It's in the 32nd minute. It wasn't until the 39th minute that the Orlando City team could even get on the board, but that was all she wrote as a 3-1 finish for the Fire, notches them the 3 points and the win. They're still sitting in 11th with a 6-4-5 record on the season, so a little bit of climbing still to do. This Saturday, if you're listening, as we said, it's Thursday we're recording, but tonight, Saturday night at 6:30 p.m., the Chicago Fire will be at Audi Field out in D.C. to face the D.C. United. Before they come back home next Saturday, it'll be a doubleheader with the Chicago Fire and the Chicago Stars at Soldier Field. That'll be a fun one. I will be there. I haven't put in my press accreditation yet. That's a little behind the scenes, but I will be there to cover this nonetheless. It'll be a 7:30 p.m. game between the Chicago Fire and the Nashville SC. And then it will be, I believe it's an earlier game, yes, for the Chicago Stars against the Seattle Reign. That is a 4 p.m. start. So it'll be a little bit of a doubleheader. Before then, the Stars had a bye week, so nothing to report there, but they will be playing tonight at Saturday night, tonight, 6-7 at 9 p.m. out in LA to face Angel City FC at BMO Stadium. So that is our soccer news. I do want to jump into some North Side news. The Cubs have had a pretty interesting week there, Brandon. I know they dropped one to the Washington Nationals, but as you said, they just finished off with taking at least 2 out of 3 from them tonight. What have you seen from your Cubs this past week?
A lot of good stuff. They're hitting the ball again, which was a good sign. I know when we talked last week, I was a little concerned about the bats going away against Colorado, even though they had won. They had swept Colorado, and they took 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati that weekend. Sorry, Daulton. But I was a little concerned about the bats, but they come in this week. And I mean, look, I know it's Washington. Washington's not a juggernaut, but Washington had been playing some really good baseball. I believe they won 11 of their last 16. And they did run into the one juggernaut that they have on that rotation. And it was a game where they ended up losing, later in the 7th inning. So I like what I'm seeing from this Cubs team. You still need a front of the rotation guy, and all these people talking about going and getting Sandy Alcantara. Stop. I don't want a guy with an 80 ERA this year. I don't care. I don't care how good he's been in the past. I want, if you're going to go get a guy for this year because you think you can be a contender this year, you need to go get a guy that is good this year. So you need to go get a guy, out of Boston who used to pitch for the White Sox, who used to cut up their jerseys because he didn't like the way they looked. I'm not saying
you're talking sales in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, sorry, Atlanta, not Boston.
He was in Boston.
Yeah. So maybe you bring Chris Sale over here, and you figure that out. Maybe you bring 2 ex-White Sox over here. Maybe you do go to Boston. Maybe they are willing to give up Garrett Crochet. Who knows? You never know. But you go and get a frontline starter. You go and get a back end of the bullpen guy. I won't say closer. I'll say back end of the bullpen guy, because you can play closer by committee the same way the Cubs have played closer by committee this entire season. So I don't focus so much on the fact that you need a closer. I focus on the fact that you need good guys to get outs in the back end of a bullpen. So I like what I'm seeing from this team. I mean, the best record in the National League. I think 2.5 games ahead of the Dodgers right now. I would have never thought that this year, coming into this year with that roster that the Dodgers were able to post. It's been fun. It's been fun, and I'm taking it. I'm a Cubs fan, man. I know what heartbreak looks like, so I'm taking it one step at a time, and I'm just enjoying the moment while we're here.
The Mets do have a better record, by the way.
Yeah,
the Mets are 39-23. The Cubs are 38-23. I don't want to burst your bubble or anything.
Way to poop on my parade.
Yeah, sorry. I just stats department. That's all.
That's what we hired you for, Daulton.
And I hate to cut you off.
He wants to come.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, mediocrity is my middle name. I don't know if you knew that or not. But no, to your point though, this offense is top 5 in the league in basically everything. I mean, they're top 5 in batting average. They're second. They're 5th in home runs. They're 1st in RBIs. They're 3rd in hits. And the one thing I really like too is that they are 3rd in stolen bases. So even when they're getting on base a lot, they're taking that extra back. They're putting pressure on the defense. But I think to your point, they're the most exciting team to watch because if they're up 5 runs, you can't turn the TV off and go to bed feeling good about it because of the back end of the bullpen. So I think they have gotten a little bit better. They were really good against the Reds last weekend. Forgive me, because the opener obviously had the first inning, and then they had their second guy come in. He pitched he had 6 strong innings. He pitched really well in that game. I think he could be something to build upon. I don't know if he's going to be a closer, maybe a setup guy, but I definitely think he's got a lot of promise. But yeah, to your point, the Braves might be sellers. They blew a 7-run lead today in the 9th inning to the Diamondbacks. They were up 7-4 going into the 9th, ended up losing 11-10. So that's a kind of game that usually costs somebody a job or two. So I mean, maybe getting Sale out of Atlanta is it can't be a bad idea. But the big thing that I talked about this, or I didn't really talk about it, but I brought it up to Marcus's show on The Truth About Chicago Sports a couple weeks ago, is how long do you go without signing Kyle Tucker to an extension to where you maybe realistically think about moving him? That way you don't lose him for nothing.
Well, here's the thing that I talked about a couple of different times. It is that, let me ask you this, and I know Kyle. What if Kyle Tucker doesn't want to sign an extension? Like, we have to consider the possibility that Kyle Tucker might just want to go to free agency and test the market because he thinks he can get, whatever, $600 million or whatever, and the Cubs might only be offering $515, $520, whatever the case is. He might not want to sign an extension right now. He might want to play the market. He is a West Coast guy. He was not happy about leaving Houston, and he was very vocal about not being happy about leaving Houston. He's playing very well. He's doing everything that he needs to do for the Cubs this year. But on the other side of that, PCA has developed into a superstar. PCA is doing things that nobody thought that he was going to, not even myself. He is slugging at a better clip than Ohtani. He has more stolen bases than anybody in the league. Like, this guy, and he plays defense better than I think he's already the best defensive center fielder in the game right now. I just do. I think that PCA developing into the superstar that he is developing into and that he has since the second half of last year makes it a little bit easier on Jed to not exactly have to go and extend Kyle Tucker right now, because you've got a bona fide superstar who you already traded for. And yes, is Kyle Tucker a nice piece? Yes. Is Kyle Tucker a great baseball player? Yes. Should you go and give PCA an extension and sign Kyle Tucker to an extension? Yes. I'm with all of that. But what I'm saying is that you've still got, Alcantara down in the minor leagues. You've still got Owen Casey down in the minor leagues. And now if you sign Tucker and you sign PCA and you've already got Ian Happ until 2028, where do these guys go? Where do they play? Are you giving up on them? So there has to be the business aspect if you're Jed Hoyer and if you're Tom Ricketts, to go out there and be like, okay, is Alcantara going to be ready next year? Is Owen Casey, who's struggling right now down in AAA, is he going to be ready next year? And if the answer is yes, and you can get PCA at $300 million and let Kyle Tucker walk for $600 million and have the same type of production, because PCA is on pace to be a 10.3 WAR player. He's on that pace. So it's about the same production you're getting from Kyle Tucker. He's actually been better than Kyle Tucker for the length of the entire season this year. You you give yourself that flexibility because you've got a guy who's budding into a superstar. So I don't think that the Kyle Tucker stuff has to happen. You definitely don't trade him because Kyle Tucker right now makes that lineup run still as well. I mean, he's still a vital piece to this team. So you don't trade him, but if you let him walk for nothing, whatever, because if you get a deep playoff run or you get a World Series berth out of this, maybe even a World Series win out of this, it paid for itself already.
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Remember, we live in Chicago, and
I said if.
And Brandon said, he is a Cubs fan, so he knows heartbreak just as much as Sox fans. He could have taken a step back and just said, I'm a Chicagoan, I know heartbreak. And Daulton, if your middle name is mediocre, then you fit right along here in the Chicagoland area. So I do want to run down the rest of the Cubs schedule for the week. As we said, they've kind of had an up and down week, but overall, pretty good, taking 2 out of 3 from both the Reds and the Nats. They will go to Detroit this weekend. White Sox just played Detroit here in Chicago, but now the Cubs and Detroit will head back to Detroit for a 3-game set. That is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that Friday game will have already happened by the time you're listening to this. Today, Saturday, that is a 12:10 start on MLB Network. Jameson Taillon due up for those Cubs. And then a 12:40 start on Sunday. That will be Horton on the mound. Then the Cubs continue out east. They have a 3-game set at the Bank out in Philadelphia, Citizens Bank Ballpark. 5:45 on both Monday and Tuesday, a 12:05 MLB Network start on Wednesday. A busy, busy week for these Cubs because then they come back home, no off day, a Thursday through Sunday 4-game set with the Pittsburgh Pirates, 7:05, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all 1:20 patented starts over on the north side. An MLB Network's game on Friday the 13th. Ooh, spooky.
Yeah, this Friday game against Detroit too, they went ahead and pushed Tarek Skubal back till Friday, and the aforementioned Ben Brown will be going up against him, who pitched a gem his last time out. I know they had a opener for him. He said he learned a lot from that opener. I listened to a little bit of his press conference today. He said he learned a lot from that, as maybe he was pressing too much in the first inning, learned to relax, and he doesn't have to put so much stress on himself in that first inning, doesn't have to go out there and shut guys down right away. He can just go out there and be himself. And so we're going to find out. We're going to find out quick because this Detroit Tigers team is really, really good. And they're going to continue to be really, really good. So we'll see how it goes.
Did you guys know tickets for that game on Friday against the Tigers in Detroit? You can as lowest ticket right now I'm seeing is $142.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
For a regular season game on a Friday night in Detroit.
They're going to be sold out all weekend long. Javi Baez is playing well, and a lot of people aren't talking about this narrative. Javi Baez playing well, coming up against the Cubs. It's going to be interesting because, Javi thrives in these situations. Javi thrives, and the stadium is going to be packed, and you're going to be playing up against the Cubs. I expect Javi Baez is going to have a good weekend.
I may know somebody who has to do with Javi Baez's hitting routine, hitting coach, so maybe I can bark up the right tree and get some insight as to that. But as we move along here, we do have a little bit of baseball news coming out of the Frontier League. As I switch over here, the Boomers had themselves a week, still sitting in first place in their division. We'll do a little wardrobe change here. We'll throw it on for the boys. Yesterday, though, there was a confrontation out on the field.
So corny.
This is what I bring.
And why is it just for the fellas? Do we not have women that watch this show too?
Oh, I meant for you guys, but no, for the fans too. Oh, and for the fellas is in the Boomers, So I guess the ladies, if we're talking about Hannah, who's our friend and correspondent on the show. So
stop digging.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. I did have a couple of people at the game last night that informed me that the brawl out on the pitcher's mound, which wasn't much of a brawl, it was just a confrontation, was due to a strikeout, and then there were some words after. So it was a very frustrated Lake Erie team. They were getting absolutely clobbered by this Schaumburg Boomers team. When you look at the score lines, it was double digits in most games. You had Schaumburg winning the first matchup 12-2, that second game 11-3, and then last night an 8-2 final. So Schaumburg taking it to these teams. As I said, they're sitting in first 17-8. They're playing .680 baseball, arguably the best team in the Chicagoland area. I did reach out to Nick Odo, the batting coach, to see if maybe, we got some insight on what was said or, what happened during that altercation. But I know they had a game today. So it was actually that 11-3 scoreline. I'm getting my days wrong here because we're recording on Thursday. That was the game yesterday. The 8-2 win was an afternoon victory today. And so they take that series completely against Lake Erie. Lake Erie won today. I'm looking at all these numbers wrong. But Schaumburg wins 11-3 last night, which, of course, is what kind of sparked that altercation is the big blowout wins. But still up top. And like I said, Nick Odo may have been a little bit tied up this afternoon with that afternoon game. When we look at the week ahead for them, they are at home at the very end of the week where they will play Mississippi, one of the new teams in the league, next weekend. But in the meantime, they will be just up the block in Crestwood as they play the Windy City Thunderbolts both Friday and Saturday. So the 6:35 Friday game will have already happened by the time you're hearing this. 6:05 tonight, Saturday. And then they go on the road to face Washington, Pennsylvania. That's Washington, Pennsylvania, for 3 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On the Cougars side of things, as I'm wearing the hat for them, it was a great week for them as they pitched a combined no-hitter. So that was exciting. We had our buddy Colin Rudisil on the call for that. But the 3 pitchers in question, that was Vin Timpanelli, Tommy Schomer, and Jake Gazzo. Congratulations to them. Next Friday the 13th, will be the replica ring giveaway as the Cougars are the defending champs. So be sure to get there early and snag your own ring.
And just to be clear with everybody, Cougars, that's a baseball team and not your night at the bar the other night, correct?
Get out of here. That is the Kane County Cougars of the American Association.
Gotcha,
yes.
gotcha. Okay.
Different league from the Boomers. But
Perfect.
no, none of that. We have the lovely and talented Genna Rose here up next for you guys, talking a little bit of AU softball at the top of the hour. And then stick around. We've got NBA, NHL, WNBA, and maybe some Bears talk sprinkled in here as well, leading up to the truth about Chicago sports. You're listening to AM 1410 WRMN. This is On the Rise. You are listening to AM 1410 WRMN. I am Mike Napoletano alongside Daulton Cooper, and this week we are bringing you another exclusive On the Rise interview. You may recognize her from almost every single stadium in the Chicagoland area and beyond. She is the in-arena host for the Chicago Stars FC, the Milwaukee Bucks, and probably most notably for our listeners, the Chicago Blackhawks. But she also takes on that same role with her vibrant personality with Athletes Unlimited Softball, which is mostly what we will be discussing here today. Please welcome the lovely and talented Genna Rose.
Mike, you're making me blush. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and thank you both for taking the time to talk a little bit today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Genna, last year you were gracious enough to pass us along tickets to the AU Softball Championships, which were held at the stadium at the Parkway Bank Sports Complex in Rosemont. And we got a chance to see some incredible softball talent from all over the country. But what stood out to me was the drafting of the teams and that point system. This year, there are now 4 established teams in the league, though. So what changes have been made going into this season with roster construction and point system?
Oh, boy. So there's definitely a lot to unpack when it comes to this new format. But what I love is that it's really harkening back to just what fans anticipate from a traditional softball game, right? So essentially this season, we are going to have the Bandits, the Blaze, the Talons, and the Volts. So essentially, we're taking our roster also with what was happening in years previous where we're bringing in draftees, right? Some of your favorite college players are coming into this one. And how this format works is that there will be teams, those 4 teams, they'll be spread across 10 major cities. So they're going to be traveling around and putting on an absolute show. So how the season works is that essentially it's a 24-game set, and then it will end in a best-of-3 series to determine the champion. So I know when it comes to AU in general, our formatting is a little different with our innovative scoring system. I think that's just a way to give a fresh look on modern era softball. But with this, it's just nuts and bolts. We're keeping it simple with how scoring goes. It's what every baseball and softball fan will expect. But I don't think they're expecting the kind of talent that we have because everyone will be blown away by the players.
I'm excited to hear that. We have some questions coming about some of those players, but I know Chicagoans are just excited to have the Bandits back. That's That's cool in its own kind of way. Amongst some of these changes is the addition of Kim Ng as commissioner of AU softball. For those that are unaware, she was born in Indianapolis, graduated from the University of Chicago, and played college softball before becoming an intern with the Chicago White Sox. And that was even before moving up to assistant director of baseball and eventually becoming an assistant general manager of the New York Yankees, the LA Dodgers. And that was all before taking on the general manager role of the Miami Marlins. She's also a 3-time World Series champion in her time with the Yankees. What has it been like to work with such an extraordinary mind in the game and of course, have her growing this league?
Well, you said it right there. Her resume is off the charts, right? And I think what's really cool is when you interact with her is that you can see that in her personality and just the way that she tackles growing the game. So to have that mix of experience where she was a player, she was in these high level positions within Major League Baseball, and of course, just continues to push what softball is and can be. She's been instrumental when it comes to Athletes Unlimited, and this just gives a phenomenal opportunity to women to continue to play professional sports and inspire the next generation. We always love to welcome the next superstars to the game. So if you ever come and check us out at AUSL, you're going to see a lot of the kiddos as well as teenagers and young women who compete all across Illinois and frankly all across the nation. They love to be a part of it and they love to learn. But the way that she just continues to renovate what we do, this the way that she attacks every moment. She's someone who embraces everything. So it's just phenomenal to have the opportunity to witness her make history. She is an absolute trailblazer. You said it right there when it came to her awesome resume. So it's just so fascinating to work with a mind that is so multifaceted, who just continues to shine a light here at Athletes Unlimited.
We are excited here at WRMN because the season begins today, Saturday the 7th, and it's happening here in Rosemont, Illinois,
Yes.
but also in Wichita, Kansas at Wilkins Stadium. What can fans expect, at least from the Rosemont matchup with the Talons and the Bandits today? I know you'll be in attendance and doing your thing out on the field as well.
Yeah, so what's really funny is I have to look at this in two ways, because the first way would be like, oh, let's talk about players and what they're going to do and how we anticipate this matchup to go. But we're still learning these teams, right? So we don't know what identity they will have within softball. Now, granted, when we've watched the players in the traditional format where teams are being drafted by different captains, it's looking different every week. They just continue to shine. But it's like, well, let's push. Let's have that look when these teams continue to gel and build chemistry. Are they going to be playing small ball? Is this going to be a team that knows how to work the long ball? They have the home runs, the big hits, stellar pitching. So we're still looking to see what that identity will be. I think what fans need to be the most prepared for is just the way that the atmosphere is so elite there. I mean, Mike, I think when you had the opportunity to come, you learn that softball is electric and the fans are super into it. And I think that's one of the things that not only makes women's sports so special, but it feels like a championship game every time that you come to the field. So I think fans need to be expecting that the place will be rocking. It will be so loud. And honestly, it probably will be a very tight matchup given that both teams' rosters are absolutely stacked. There's plenty of talent. And then we get to meet some of the newer faces that are joining the league. Oh, it definitely will. And it's such a phenomenal venue as well. So, Mike, I know you were mentioning that this name is harkening back to the OG Chicago Bandits. I know when I was a young player, we would play at the ESPN Wide World of Sports every single year. And it was so exciting because my first ever game was watching the Pride compete against the Chicago Bandits. And what really stood out to me about them was the fact that they were letting us, like we were probably 10, 11, 12 at the time, they would let us come up and interact with them. If we had little hairspray that we were, dyeing our hair with, they did it on the ends of their hair because they did it all for us. They came and did autographs. And that just inspired the next generation that we are about to meet again here as we continue to grow and expand the league. So for me, it's just so exciting that players get to continue to do that. And I love watching the autographs happen in the bullpen in between games, especially when we get closer to those double headers, because you can see the smiles on the girls and young women's faces as they get to meet some of their heroes. And for me, this is entering my 4th season as a host and being a part of Athletes Unlimited. And I was so nervous. I know I've worked with the likes of Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves of the Blackhawks, but I'm like, hold on, Sierra Romero from Michigan. I'm a Michigan girly. I watched her when I was in high school when she was playing for U of M. It's just a different atmosphere when these are players that you watch and that you grew up with.
No doubt. And as you mentioned, as I was saying, it's going to be loud. I'm going to be across the street for Saturday and Sunday for a haunt convention, which I know is not your at all. But, I'm probably going to be hearing you guys from across the street. And then, of course, look out Chicago Dogs if they're in town, because that stadium is
Yeah, I'm very good friends with Mike, who's the PA for the Chicago Dogs, and I did spend some time hosting with the Dogs. Absolutely love the organization, but if there's ever a bit of a standstill during a game, you can hear Mike go or you can hear me talk. So it's just a fun setup, and I love that we have our own little niche corner that is just full of phenomenal Chicago sports right now, bringing back the Bandits in their old stadium that we are refreshing, and that has continued to be a homestand for Athletes Unlimited. So for AUSL, it's really exciting. And then after that series ends, we'll be bringing in the AUSL All-Star Cup 4-week season. And that's going to condense to 60 professional players rather than 64. But then that's when we go back to the innovative scoring system, because I think we've learned with baseball, like, yes, we do have the traditional crowd, but it's really fun to add weight to it. Can we establish inning win points? So then that adds extra incentive for players and teams to perform well. And it's cool that you can start following the individual. If they get a single, that's worth a certain amount of points. Doubles, you can lose and earn points with every single play, which is why every moment counts. So when we get to that portion, it's just going to be electric. I know that's been my keyword today during this interview, but I just want people to be ready for how phenomenal this will be.
No doubt. I have my cheat sheet here from when I came last year. All the scoring system. You talk about the inning wins, like 10 points awarded to the team that scores the most runs in any given inning. Of course, if the inning ends in a tie, the points roll over to the next inning. And then in extra innings, no player earns individual points, and only points that have rolled over from previous innings can be earned. So there's multiple layers to this stuff. This has definitely been well thought out. And of course, we mentioned it's going to be taking place in Rosemont. But tell us a little bit about the travel across the country that this league will be doing. I've seen Omaha, Nebraska, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Seattle, Washington, and many more on the list of locations. Will you be traveling with the league as well? I know you do a lot of running around no matter what sport it is.
Yeah, so this season I'll only be on the Omaha trip. I'm actually getting married August 1st, so I'll not be able to do their typical Greenville Little League World Series appearance. That'll be more towards the AUSL All-Star Cup game. But truly, it's just so exciting because you think about those places that you mentioned, and they are phenomenal territories when it comes to college softball. And what's really exciting about the game is you think about AUSL. This is something that continues to grow. So it is going to be expanded to people who absolutely love their college teams. And it will also be introducing this phenomenal sport to people who may not be so familiar. So you get to fall in love with the players, the traditional formatting. It pushes the pros when it comes to building chemistry, gelling. Again, will they be small ball? Can they go yard? What is pitching looking like? How's the defense? So it's really fun to be able to find your favorites, and then you'll get to continue to root for those individuals when we get ready for the AUSL All-Star Cup.
Oh my goodness, the game within the game, and baseball and softball are already so complex. I love it. This is awesome. I talked about your traveling. You've been traveling and working like crazy. You were telling me back in March that you hadn't had a day off since the start of the calendar year with Bucks and Blackhawks, but now it has become Stars FC, AU softball, and even D3 softball. What has that travel schedule been like for you outside of AU?
Yeah, it has been a little demanding, but I think what's so important is to share is that it's just so rewarding because I get to pull the different strengths and I get to push myself every time I step into a different arena, field, pitch, rink, whatever we want to start throwing in there for verbiage. And it's really exciting too, especially being in Chicago for so long, because I wrapped my 4th season with the Chicago Blackhawks, getting excited for season number 5. But you get to continue to build relationships. And I absolutely love when I'm doing broadcast work, but to have that opportunity to be so close and build relationships with fans is something super special, because John and I, when we're coming in, our home base is 312. Obviously, Mike, you come and visit, but everybody is more than welcome to come say hi to us before we start the show or during the show. But just to have kids who come up and they say that this is what they want to do one day, or just be able to show them that there's so much more to hockey, especially when it comes to the culture. It's just something that is beyond rewarding. And I am so grateful that I get to do that in different arenas and be able to build relationships in different parts of the state and in different states, right? Being a Wisconsinite for 2 years now, that has been an absolute blast. 2.5, very Midwest phrasing there. But, with the Bucks, they're just such a phenomenal organization. And also they piece together phenomenal teams while on the court. So it's just been really fun to be a part of that culture and just get like a little slice of Wisconsin in, No
doubt. I'll be up there on Friday as part of the Haunt stuff. So
let's go.
Abandoned haunted house. You're not going. I know.
I will not be there, but if I drive by on the highway, I will wave.
Okay.
And speaking of, you spoke about the players a little bit, Genna. So I wanted to get a little pivot just a hair. So the one player that I really had a big interest in was Bree Ellis, right? She's basically the quote unquote the Barry Bonds of softball, right? She was the first overall pick in the college draft they had this past year,
Yes.
the 2025 SEC Player of the Year. Her like hit to walk ratio was just insane. The batting average she carried. So do you, as kind of a scouting, be that scouting department for us, do you anticipate her success translating immediately into the Athletes Unlimited Softball League? And then I guess second part of that, do you have anybody else that you're kind of following on your radar to have a big season this year?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think we have to take a look at how Lexi Kilfoyle performed. She was one of the top performers at the end of the season last year, who was recently implemented into the AU system, and she dominated. I think one of the things is that there's only so much that you can do when it comes to studying tape, right? When you have the opportunity to feel the velo, how are they working in the zone? Can they get you with the up ball? Are they working east-west? When they're a pitcher that can pull so many things in their arsenal, it is really scary as you continue to try to map out what they look like from in the circle. I think that paid off extremely well for Kilfoyle, especially somebody who runs it up in the velocity. Those taller pitchers, that wingspan, the delivery, they can just keep it deceptive. So for her, I do think that she is going to have a standout season. She'd probably be one of my favorites. And also, the golden tickets were making me sob when I was watching that. I know that you mentioned it's just been exciting to see some of the new faces that are joining, but I think that just continues to speak to what the team behind the scenes has been able to do to just make this so creative and such a welcoming experience, and really show that, hey, Athletes Unlimited, women's softball, this is it. We think about the Women's College World Series. The numbers are over 1 million when it comes to these big games. And also the partnership with Major League Baseball. We're going to be seeing some of these games on MLB TV. So those are all things that are making just for a phenomenal season ahead. But to your point, it is really tough because I have my personal biases. I am a big fan of any player that played for the University of Michigan.
Yeah, go blue. That's right.
As you know, I know, right?
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to take away from that lens. I think Kilfoyle is going to be absolutely dominant because she's had a chance to get these batters' numbers, but at the same time, they've gotten to see her, right? So then you think, how are they going to adjust in the plate? How are they going to adjust with their approach? I know I mentioned one of my favorite players, Sierra Romero, but I just see on social media, she is putting in the work time and time again. She's somebody who, when she was at Michigan, she would absolutely rock you when she was at the plate. And so it's fun to see her enter that role where she's teaching the next generation how to hit. She's showing you different drills. And she was somebody who was a captain a time or two during last season. So she was able to work her way up the leaderboard. We didn't necessarily see that the season prior. So I expect her to have a breakout year, especially with her phenomenal experience that she has under her belt as, a former Michigan player.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I hate to get personal, but I do have to ask you a personal question. Like I mentioned before, I was doing a little bit of homework on Miss Genna Rose. I noticed that you are a huge Bo Jackson fan.
I am.
Monumental Bo Jackson fan. So I guess my first question is going to be, how long until we anticipate your popularity and your platform to get Mr. Bo Jackson involved in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League?
I am going to push forward. I have had people say that they've actually seen him in grocery stores just from him being around the area here in Illinois. Nice. And I don't know if he would want to meet me. No, I'm sure I would keep it professional. Yes, it's funny. I have a framed photo in my house of when he was breaking the bat over his knee. It's just so awesome. And this might be a little too personal, but whatever. My fiance and I met on Hinge, and literally my last note on my Hinge page was that I created Bo Jackson highlights. Yes. So they're all baseball, nothing football. But I just think that gave him a great laugh because he's like, oh, this is very interesting. But I'm just such a big fan of his, and it's just so incredible to think what he did. And of course, it is sad that, you think about the injury as well, what could have been, but for what he was able to accomplish, it's just monumental. So I would hope that he would want to get involved with Athletes Unlimited. I know he does a lot of phenomenal work when it comes to celebrating different organizations as well as foundations, but that would be the dream. That would be the dream. I'll keep you updated.
We can only hope. Anything that we can do to help you in that venture, you please let us know. We'd be more than happy to help out. The only man on planet Earth that might be be more recognizable by his quads than by his actual face. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. And you mentioned the MLB investment into Athletes Unlimited softball. Do you, other than obviously having the games on their platforms and ESPN and so on and so forth, do you see, as far as into the future, what that could be, what that partnership could really bring to Athletes Unlimited softball?
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to bring a lot because it's just expanding to a broader audience because not everybody knows that Athletes Unlimited is a thing. And I know that we've really been dialing in on softball, but there are a slew of other sports that are under the umbrella when it comes to the league. So I think the way that this is going to shine a light on women's sports, and also you think about some folks who compete in the WNBA, right? And they have the opportunity to be here when it comes to Athletes Unlimited. So it just gives multiple opportunities. And Major League Baseball, they have the giant platform. And I think we've talked about the traditional sense of baseball and softball, right? You understand the format, what it's going to be. But I think sometimes what people struggle with baseball is maybe the length of it, right? There might be people who are more interested in faster paced sports. And I think introducing Athletes Unlimited to that audience will be huge. We talked about some of the numbers from the Women's College World Series, which have been like monstrous. So I think just after this Women's College World Series, especially knocking out, Oklahoma, who was looking for their 5-peat, right? I just think that's going to continue, and having $1 million arm compete in these games for Texas Tech, it's just going to continue to push that need and want for a faster paced sport. And I think personal bias of all the women's professional sports, softball is just one of the most electric. And on top of that, too, you think about some of the attendance records that have been in Athletes Unlimited, and softball continues to break those. Midwest is such a phenomenal area that really gravitates towards the sport. A lot of college coaches like to recruit players from the Midwest because they have that grit. And sometimes this is not the case for everybody, because we know at Athletes Unlimited and college softball, we have a ton of phenomenal talent that are from the West Coast, that are from down south. But at times, sometimes those players get a little burnt out, right? Because they can compete all the time. They're in the weather. And also the talent level there is pretty large. So I think Midwest kids kind of had that special grit. So that's why it's really fun that we're able to play, the old Stadium of the Bandits. Now we're rebranding and bringing the Chicago Bandits back in AUSL, and we're keeping it to the Midwest kids as well as spreading across to 10 major cities in the U.S.
No, absolutely. Not everybody can handle that Chicago winter. That's for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, exactly. And then, these are kids who are fierce and they want to compete, right? So they love those extra opportunities and can adjust so well to the college level because they're already putting in that extra time in the weight room. They're putting in that time for the nutrition, and they're eager to get out in the warmer weather.
100%. 100%.
Genna, you talked about Bo Jackson. Now, with your position with the Blackhawks, I expect you to get him on skates at some point too, because that old commercial where Bo knows football, Bo knows baseball, and then he gets on the ice and he looks like a baby deer. And no, absolutely not. But
listen, I will do my best, but I don't think I have that reach yet. So maybe I'll talk to John Hansen. He's a popular guy. You hear him on the airwaves.
There you go. That might be the end. Moving forward, though, you had mentioned your fiance. We just spoke with Connor Klingon and Colin Rudisil of the Kane County Cougars broadcasting team last week. Connor just got married. Colin just got engaged. I feel like everyone I know is getting married in 2025. But you actually started the trend. You and your fiance Jordan got engaged.
Oh, thank you.
And are prepping for celebration this year. Have you both been able to kind of juggle all of the wedding planning amidst these hectic schedules?
Absolutely not. No. But I think we're doing a great job with what we have. And what was really funny is I'm just so excited that I've been getting more opportunities in the softball world. So I did do the Sun Belt Conference Softball Championships, which was in New Orleans. That was a little unexpected when I got the call. And then the Division III College World Series, where this took about 8 days for us to get rocking and rolling. And funny enough, he's from New Hampshire. I'm from Michigan. So we had 2 separate wedding showers this month in opposite parts of the country. But I mean, just to have somebody who supports you no matter what, and who, is your person that loves you, I just feel beyond blessed that I have him in my life. And the best part is that he's a Boston Bruins fan. And what's really funny, I know. So he's working there. He has more Blackhawks things than Bruins. So I'm already arguing. He watches more Blackhawks games. He comes from more, come on, you're a Chicago fan.
Come on, man.
But just the best part is 1 year for Christmas, I wrapped the documentary called 17 Seconds, right? We all know what happened in that Stanley Cup final. And so he opened that under the tree And it was just the best thing ever. So I rip him on that. And he has this really funny pet peeve where he does not like when there's seconds left on the microwave. I don't know if you ever do that if you take food early, but I started to leave it at 17. And so he'd go look at it and he's like, I can't believe you don't know how to turn this thing off. And he goes, it's so strange because I feel like it always stops at 7. And then as he was saying it, he realized what I was doing. So, I mean, listen, we have fun together. We try to stay on top of what the Bruins are doing. I think it's super exciting. For Marchand, now a part of the Florida Panthers. So, it's just fun about hockey as you continue to root for these players because he hated the Florida Panthers for such a long time, right? Yeah. So it's just fun that you get to continue to celebrate individual players or the sport. And he's secretly a Blackhawks fan. I think we're his number one.
And both teams have new coaches coming into the season, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
No, it's definitely different. It's funny because he was offended that his dad started texting me about hockey and the Bruins versus him,
Nice.
which is pretty fun. But, I just can't speak enough of Kyle Davidson. I think he's phenomenal at what he does. So when it comes to trusting the process and seeing what the product will be out on the ice, I just have complete trust and faith. And as a former, Red Wings fan, right, being from Michigan, there's experience with Blashill there. So just looking forward to see what this team can do and continue to compete.
Red Wings and Bruins, that's where I got to draw the line. But no, we are running out of time anyways. But Genna, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Myself and for Daulton, you guys are listening to AM 1410 WRMN. This is On the Rise. We will be right back with some more information about said NHL playoffs coming up right here on the Rise.
It's time to wake up and get on the rise with all things Chicago sports. And your host, Mike Napoletano.
I'm Italian. I get yelled at all the time. This is normal for me. Are you kidding me?
I love it.
The Italians, we get really high, we get really emotional, and then we bring it right back down. And I'm just in the right back down part right now.
Daulton Cooper.
I think this is the year. He throws for over 4,000 yards. I think Ben Johnston has an understanding of how to take a quarterback and elevate. We've seen what he's done with Jared Goff. Obviously, Jared Goff had gotten to Super Bowl, and he was working with Sean McVay, but.
And Brandon Combs.
And to tell me that a guy in Barry Bonds, who in 2004 has more hits and intentional walks than swings and misses. For a guy who watches Luis Robert and cheers him on, you're going to tell me Barry Bonds does not belong in the Hall of Fame? You are out of your mind, sir.
On WRMN 1410 AM, the voice of the Valley.
You are listening to AM 1410 WRMN. This is On the Rise with Brandon Combs, Daulton Cooper, and myself, Mike Napoletano. You just heard from the super talented Genna Rose. We are super grateful that she was able to come on and give us some insight on the Athletes Unlimited Softball League that is starting up here in Rosemont. You can catch those games Saturday and Sunday, and then Tuesday. There's 4 teams in that league, as we were kind of going over, and one of them is the Bandits, as they're bringing them back. Daulton, I think you said it was a 2:00 game on Saturday?
Yep.
I believe it is a 3:00 start on Sunday, and then an evening matchup. Forgive me. Sorry, Genna. I got to look up these times right here. But we also forgot to mention that if you wanted to connect with Genna, she is on Instagram at Genna Rose TV. That is Genna with a G, the correct Italian spelling. Molto bene, mamma mia, as you were saying, GENNA ROSE TV. So, she's super talented. Go give her a follow on there as well. We can jump into some Chicago Sky news because there's not a lot. They only had 1 game this week. I did a double check of the schedule. I'm like, wait, they had the whole week off. Last Saturday, after we jumped off the microphones, the Sky secured their 2nd win of the season against Dallas. Once again, they had that home win against Dallas. They went on the road. They beat Dallas. So a 2-4 record. Dallas now 1-6, a 94-83 final right there. But their next game, gentlemen, will be this Saturday, tonight, 7 p.m. on CBS. That'll be against the Fever, who are without Caitlin Clark due to injury, but it will be the first of at least 5 scheduled games for this Sky team for the WNBA Commissioner's Cup, which is that in-season tournament that the WNBA is running, similarly to the in-season tournament that the NBA has adapted. So, Daulton, I know you will be at the game tonight. What are you expecting, and what are you looking forward to out of this Sky team?
Well, first they're gonna, like you mentioned, they're gonna play the Fever without Caitlin Clark. So I would assume the defense would be a little bit better, just because you don't have to worry about that outside shooting presence. So you should be able to play the pick and roll a little bit better, similar to what they had the last couple games, which has been a nice addition. Also, Ariel Atkins has been playing really well last couple games. She now leads the team in points per game at a little over 15. They currently have 4 players averaging 10 points or more. Obviously, Angel Reese is averaging that double-double. So Vandersloot is really starting to find her game. It seems that she's starting to really mesh pretty well with the gal. She obviously has that championship pedigree. That's kind of what she's brought in for, was to be, that, I guess, that presence or kind of that veteran leader. So I'm excited to see that. And hopefully they can keep their winning ways. I mean, there's 8 teams make the WNBA playoffs, so they're right there on the fringe. It's still kind of early in the season, so I'm curious to see how. I'm also curious to see if there's a little bit more edge to this game with it being a Commissioner Cup game. I don't know if it's more of a home style, if you will, or if they take it a little bit more serious than just a regular season game. So I'm excited to see, and it's at the United Center, so hopefully they should have a little more people in there, just because it's bigger than Wintrust, and hopefully the crowd's rocking.
I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit on Angel Reese to miss her first shot. Just sprinkle. Just
Oh no. Well, yeah, I'm interested to see how they run this as well, Daulton, because it isn't their necessarily a home court. It's still here in Chicago, but it's at the United Center, a much bigger venue. I'm interested to see what the court looks like. Are they just rolling out the Bulls court, or are they shifting over the Sky court from Wintrust Arena? I'm sure that would be a project in and of itself, but I'm sure it'll say Sky in some form on there. But yeah, they're going all out for this game. There is another matchup between these two teams at the United Center. The Fever and the Sky will face each other July 27th, which is a Sunday. It'll be the only other meeting here in Chicago between these two teams. That one will not be a Commissioner's Cup game, but still that heated rivalry between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, the Sky and the Fever. So interested to see the results from this one. I know you will be there with our other correspondent from The Truth About Chicago Sports, Blake Cowell, who's extremely talented. So looking forward to the documenting and reporting that you guys will be bringing us as well. When we get into NBA basketball, we have a very important game 1 here tonight, and it looks like it's a runaway as I'm watching these live scores. 94-79 in favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I kind of think this is what we were all predicting, especially with OKC starting at home. 9 minutes and 42 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Brandon, your thoughts on this game 1 pretty much being wrapped up, and how you think the rest of this series is going to be going?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I would say that it's a shock, but I mean, look, Oklahoma City has just been so damn good. And the Pacers can make it a series, I should say, because they can go on these runs that make it look like they can score at will. And they can be just as potent offensively as Oklahoma City. The thing going into this series was, could they handle Oklahoma City's defense? And so far tonight, they have not been able to. Oklahoma City holding them down right now is 79 points. I mean, it's wild. So I expect to see a series. I thought Oklahoma City was going to win this in 6. I think I would still stick to that. There is a chance. I mean, maybe 5, but Indiana's good enough to get 1, maybe 2.
No, this smells like a gentleman's sweep to me. The biggest thing that I noticed coming into this series, and shout out to Ryan Russillo, I was listening to a little bit of his podcast. The Thunder going into the finals, they were ranked 12th out of 16 teams in 3-point shooting, and they were shooting right around 9% lower than what they did in the regular season. So they were dismantling these teams without even shooting the 3-ball well. So the fact that if you look at the game tonight, they're shooting 44% from 3 right now. Currently, they're 11 of 25. So the 3-point ball is working, and when that's working, I mean, this team is unbeatable. To your point, they play great defense, but if they're making their threes, it's all but over, fellas. It's just simple math at that point. So I think this smells like a gentleman's sweep. I think Indiana gets game 3, which technically, I guess, is, and that's the other thing too. Is a gentleman's sweep? Is it 3 straight and then a game 4 loss and then a game 5 win, or does it matter which game? Because I guess that would be the meat of the meat of the rule here. Okay, it just means
I
4-1,
think it's
right?
just 5 games. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's
So
I've always taken it.
it feels like a gentleman's sweep to me. I think another thing too, are they going to let John Halliburton maybe on the court? I feel like if they lose game 2, if the Pacers lose game 2 in kind of the same fashion, I feel like they got to all bets are off. They got to get John Halliburton back on the wood. They got to get him in, he's their secret weapon. Caitlin Clark will be in attendance as well because the Pacers are 7-0 this postseason when Caitlin Clark is in the building watching. The problem is game 6, the Fever have a game that she'll probably be at, which is, I think it's in Seattle. So we'll see what happens. But at this point, the Pacers' best bet is to get John Halliburton on the wood, game 3. Hopefully they come back 1-1. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's a gentleman's sweep written all over it.
Yeah, that's fair. I have some exciting news that myself and one of our guests and correspondents, Grant Leader, who has been a guest of this show multiple times and some of our other shows here on the River Media Network Sports, he and I will be taking the trip down to Indianapolis for game 3 next Wednesday to go ahead and be man on the street. I won't be screaming into the microphone this time, Brandon, don't worry. And we will go ahead and get some content outside from Indy fans. Of course, Grant himself is an OKC fan, so we'll get his take on things as well and chill out and watch the game. We won't be in the arena unless we can magically pull some strings within a week, but we'll be in the atmosphere, in the environment.
We're not going to be able to see what happens because Mike is bringing Grant into a war zone, an Oklahoma City Thunder fan into Indianapolis, and he's going to wear OKC gear. This is probably not a smart idea. I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah, we're probably going to get beat up. But that leads us to our next segment, which is Brandon's baby. Brandon, go ahead and take it away with this one. Explain the rules here.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring a little bit of fun and a little bit of some excitement to the show, and I wanted to play off of your Italian a little bit here. So I came up with a little segment we're going to call Mamma Mia. And what we're going to do here is we are going to go over whether it's a hot take, a player that has driven us nuts, a play or a call or anything, even if it's something just in life. You want to complain about that? Complain about it. But at the end of it, you give them a little Mamma Mia. So, Mike.
Go for it, Daulton. You started up.
Mike, you're Italian. You got to go first.
Yeah, 100%. Mike, you got to start this. What do you mean? This is your segment.
All right, that's fair. Well, then I guess my first Mamma Mia is going to be this is tough here. I have one, but I want to end with it. So getting to the Mamma Mia, I will go with that White Sox loss Monday night, a 13-1. I had that in my mind before the White Sox went and had a good split with this Detroit team. So this is kind of going to sound, a little wrong of me to do to the White Sox, but they came off of that sweep or, getting swept by Baltimore, and then you lose 13-1 when you come home. So that was a Mamma Mia, but they picked it up throughout the rest of the series that week. So that was a good thing. Mamma Mia. Oh, yikes. I guess my second Mamma Mia.
Whoa!
Oh, are we going one at a time?
We're going around.
Okay.
Going around.
Nice.
All three. Yeah, we don't want the people to get bored right away and just have you go off.
Well, I would follow that up with the Bears. Listen to me. The Fire outbidding for that space. I mean, like I said earlier, the billionaires, they've got all this money. Jerry Reinsdorf has old money, new money. He's got all kinds of money. The fact that he gets outbid by a entrepreneur of a financial services company is just wild. So, Mamma Mia, if you want your stadiums, just put the money up. It's like sports. You've already seen it, how much of a return investment sports is, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So put your money in. The people will come. Mamma Mia.
Okay. All right. So I had something here for Major League Baseball and its umpires. And the way that umpires are out of control and the strike zones suck, and they're 20 years past due of having automated strike zones. But I'm going to switch it up here a little bit. I'm going to go against you two right now. With your very first two Mamma Mias, Get excited, guys. Get angry about stuff. Yell at some. Mike, you are Italian. Yell at somebody. Yell at something. And then at the end, you got to go, Mamma Mia. Like,
it's
what
coming.
are you guys doing?
It's coming. It's coming. We expect these things as Chicago fans, so it's a little bit,
get excited.
It's the date right there. That's your Mamma Mia, though. Is that us?
Yes.
That's fair. That's fair. Now I'm heated. Here we go. My second Mamma Mia is Brandon Coates. No, I'm kidding. It's not Brandon Coates. It actually was the outbidding of the White Sox, so I have to think up another one. This is actually going to be a good Mamma Mia. This is a passionate. This is oh yes, Mamma Mia. Here we go. Very nice. And that is going to lead us kind of into our next topic, but we're going to stay in the Mamma Mia segment. It is going to be that I called it. It is finally the truth. It has come out. It is public knowledge that the addition to Fifth Third Arena and the Chicago Blackhawks is going to eventually be the new home of the Chicago Steel. That's a team that's been bought by the Wirtzes, can't be bought by the Blackhawks because it's a USHL development team. But Mamma Mia, we don't have accreditation there yet. This guy was slacking last year. We didn't go to a single Steel game, and now they've signed Scott Gomez, and now they're getting a new rink. They're not going to be in the Fox River Valley anymore, so a little bit further than where we are situated here at WRMN. So we're still going to be covering them, but oh, Mamma Mia, we really got to jump in on this Steel while the Steel is getting good right now.
Yeah, is it the hot steel, the hot rolled steel?
That's hot steel, baby.
Yeah, that's the hot steel.
Better. That was a little better.
Wait till my third one.
Right. So do you want a good Mamma Mia or do you want a bad Mamma Mia?
It's up to you.
Can they be? I'm gonna say, can they be either one? I just want to make sure that I'm playing in the right lines of the Mamma Mia. You know.
Hey, whichever way you want to go with it, it's your rant. But I want you to rant.
Oh, you want me to rant? I feel like nothing has upset me, but. I mean, I lied. Something did upset me. The fact that the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau.
Yes.
Literally for the best season they've had in literally 25 years. And they're going to fire this guy? Like, I don't understand. Like, what do you want? I understand it's New York. I understand the expectations are high. But at the same point in time, they were literally rewind a week before they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're literally dancing in the street. They're tearing down street signs. You would have thought everybody had the winning lottery ticket the way these people were acting, which is great. I mean, enjoy the ride. I'm a sports fan. It's called fanatic for a reason. You got to enjoy the highs. You got to enjoy the lows. It's all part of the game. But the fact that they come out and everything with Jalen Brunson's dad is now being reported to where maybe he was dropping hints that, they should get rid of Tom Thibodeau. But him and Tom Thibodeau go back a long, long time, fellas. They've got like a 40-year relationship. Basically everywhere Tom Thibodeau has gone, Brunson's dad has followed him. So, Mamma Mia, how are you going to fire the guy after finally getting this team to basically where they want to be on a consistent basis? And that's in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I like it. I agree. Even though I don't think a Tom Thibodeau-led team will ever win a championship, I like it.
That's true. I mean, you compare him with the stats he had here in Chicago, and it looks the same. So obviously, the reasoning that the Bulls had to fire him would kind of apply here, but you take a step back and you look at what Daulton talked about is their best season. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. Aren't you going to continue to build upon that? Because honestly, unless you have another coach lined up, who are you replacing him with? I mean, if you had the guy stepping in next, then okay. Like you said, he might just be a setup coach, but I don't know. I think he could have continued one more year with him building to that level.
Okay. We'll see. I'm going. My next Mamma Mia is I'm gonna go at a guy named the Sports Machine Sean Levine on the BetMGM network, who had the nerve on air this week to say that Aaron Judge has already cemented himself as the greatest home run hitter of all time. Are you out of your ever-loving mind? A guy who calls himself the Sports Machine is going to tell me that a guy with 336 home runs in his career is the greatest home run hitter of all time and has cemented himself that way? Have you forgotten about guys like Barry Bonds? Have you forgotten about guys like Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Albert Pujols, Alex Rodriguez, Willie Mays? Like, Ken Griffey Jr., Sammy Sosa, Jim Thome? Like, there are so many other guys who are better home run hitters in their career. Look, I know Aaron Judge is great right now, and I know Aaron Judge he might be able in his career to hit 600, maybe even 700 home runs. I think he's fantastic. But to say that he cemented himself as the greatest home run hitter of all time on national airwaves, and you call yourself the sports machine, Mamma mia.
Has Aaron Judge even earned his pinstripes yet? That's the question.
No, he's not even the greatest Yankee home run hitter of all time.
Yeah, yikes. That is a really premature early hot take. Did we just start a rivalry with BetMGM, your other company, Brandon? Oh, no. Look out.
Just Sean Levine.
Oh, yeah, Mamma Mia indeed. My final one, though, this is where I get heated. All right, boys. I go on 3-mile runs multiple times throughout the week. If it's not a 3-mile run one day, it's a 25-minute stationary bike workout at the gym. When I am on my runs, the amount of kids I see on the path or wherever I'm out running that are on these motorized scooters, or even when I'm driving around in the neighborhood, motorized scooters and motorized bikes. We can't push a scooter anymore. We can't push a bike anymore. These kids aren't actually even getting exercise. Sure, yeah, maybe they're getting off the video games and going outside, but you're telling me everything has to be motorized now? I mean, you might as well just buy like, one of those teleporter things or whatever those. This isn't even a Mamma Mia. This is an oof maron, because our next generation, oh Lord, we're out of here. No, this is ridiculous. And okay, also, I barely had a flip phone at that age for some of these kids, and you're telling me they got these brand new. Get out of here! I'm done. Oh my goodness.
Is
that hot enough?
You are 27 going on 84.
Yeah, I was going to say, old man yelling at clouds right now.
I am 26 going on 94. Speaking of the 90s, the Pacers are into the 90s. It is 101 OKC to 96 Indiana. So they have definitely climbed back here. But
it goes back to what I said, where they can just go on these runs where it's ridiculous. It's insane.
Oof, maron, boys. Yeah. Go ahead with your next takes.
Wow, my last Mamma Mia. Well, I guess I could technically have one more, but Brandon, you talked about the greatest goalie on the planet. I got to give the Mamma Mia to his coach, man. What in the world is Peter DeBoer doing? The fact that he pulls his goalie, his starting franchise goaltender. I mean, he did go 0 for 2. Okay, not the greatest start in the world. Don't get me wrong, but like to go to Casey DeSmith that quickly, and then the worst part to me, he goes to the press conference after the game and then doubles down on his decision to pull Ottinger by saying, well, Ottinger last year didn't play very well dating back to, the Oilers. And we had a big enough sample size going into this year. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're creating your own roadblock for your franchise goaltender. I've got news for you, pal. That goalie is going to be a Dallas Star longer than you will be a Dallas Star at this point. I mean, they're the second team in NHL history to lose 3 consecutive conference finals. I couldn't even find the first team. That's how far you have to go back into the history books, by the way. And just like, what are you doing? What are we doing? Like, just wear it. Like, if you made a bad decision, you should have kept Ottinger in the game. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to create a spark. Like, if you're trying to create a spark, you should have put Maverick Bjork in for the lineup, maybe for somebody. He was AHL Player of the Year last year. He's still in the system. Like, switch up their starting lineup. Maybe get Ben out of the lineup, whatever the case may be. But to pull your starting goalie, who has honestly been the reason why they may have gotten that far to begin with, just Mamma Mia. What are you doing? What are you doing? Career suicide, basically, is what I mean. The DeBoer, it seems like he's on his way out, honestly.
Yeah. No kidding. And I know, Brandon, we got to get to your last Mamma Mia, but we're running out of time here. So I do want to make mention that the Edmonton Oilers won an incredible overtime game last night. They were kind of faltering against the Panthers team, but they got the breaks that they needed, and they started to play the game that they needed to. Daulton and I talked a little bit more in depth on between the benches last night about this alongside Canada Daddy, but we'll go into a little bit more of this series as it unfolds throughout the week. But I just wanted to give note to that before we get to our last Mamma Mia. And all that Blackhawks news we'll dive more into next week.
Yeah, and look, my last Mamma Mia actually was going to be a good one because I don't want all of the people here thinking that I just hate everything. Okay, so I do like some things, right? And what I liked was Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and I hope that we get 6 more of those games in the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't even care who wins. I'm kind of rooting for Edmonton because I'm rooting for Connor McDavid, and I don't want to see that bum Seth Jones get a cup. So I am rooting for Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers, but I just want to see 6 more games just like that. I mean, fantastic. The first period, Edmonton's defense looked like it was way too slow to keep up with Florida. Looked like Florida was going to run away with this thing, and then they come out in the second period and they just flip the script on everything. And look, that Bobrovsky probably wants that tying goal back. Probably a save he should have made there. But then in overtime was fantastic. What they scored the final goal with like a minute and a half to go in the third period. I mean,
30 seconds, 31 seconds.
Yeah. 31 seconds. I mean, the play setup was just fantastic. McDavid enters the zone with the puck, skates around, flips it over to Draisaitl, and the way they just set that up, the pass from Perry back to McDavid, back over to Draisaitl. I mean, it was so pretty. And 6 more games like that, and I will be a happy camper. Mamma Mia.
Chef's kiss, indeed. I would like it to go 5 more games, and Edmonton can close it out on the road and not have to worry about a Game 7 again. But we will see. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in here. This has been On the Rise, AM 1410 WRMN. Brandon Combs, Daulton Cooper, and myself, Mike Napoletano. Stick around. The Truth About Chicago Sports is up next. And thank you to Genna Rose, our guest this week.